Good day, would you be interested in creating an ARPG that people will play and say, hey, that's a game I want to enjoy all day, definitely going to replay, and in general it doesn't overstay its welcome? And by that I mean make a pretty 5 out of 10 middle of the road experience that's best described with the word okay. Welcome to Torchlight. Grab your pickaxe, get into the mine, and think, wow, this is just Diablo 1. For your game, what kind of central gameplay do you want here? Could it be a lot, or rather a cubic? Sorry, I meant a metric. Sorry, I actually meant a ridiculous fucking ball load of walking and hitting an attack skill. And in response, you might say, Seer, why are you such a bad Path of Exile player? And I would say, let's stay on topic, we're bitching about another game this week. And then you might say, well, isn't every ARPG basically walking and attacking enemies? And yes, they are, that's the essence of the experience, but it can be refined, it can be changed, it can be simply done better. And Torchlight's biggest problem is that it does everything just fine overall, but adds nothing to the equation. Unless you count feeding your pet an eel or some shit, which gives it greater power for a limited time. I mean, like, I don't want to do that. Get these fishing spots off my screen. But before I start saying this licks, or this is sick, or perhaps make some reference to my dick, let me conclude my opening statement and then get into our 4 sections of discussion and judgment, those being the gameplay, depth of systems, theme, art and music, and finally developer and community support. In this game, you arrive as one of 3 travelers to the town of Torchlight and try to delve deeper and deeper into the endless dungeon below to uncover the larger plot surrounding these innocent people. There are progressively more dangerous monsters and a constant stream of reveals indicating that the mines lead to something more nefarious. Boy, where have I seen this one before? I can't remember. Alright, time to write a transitional sentence that gets us from this game is Diablo 1, me clever, me reference forever, to what this game does well and how we can best objectively discuss it. Also what this game does badly, which is actually more than I expected. When I see and play Torchlight, I think of that meme dog, no, not that one, fucking this one, the everything is okay one, because that's my complete consensus on the gameplay. This is an unoffensive game. I mean, it's so basic you'd have to be a nitpicking, flea-brained drawer stain to make sweeping complaints about it. So I drafted up a list of why this game is dog shit. Certain ideas here are strange and in so many ways almost completely wrongly developed, so much so that I like to imagine the developer meeting went something like this. Okay, yeah, so first things first, it's 2009, the first year of gaming. People are over keyboards obviously, so no rebindable keybinds. These people are 10-fingered freaks, so let them use 1 through 0 only. Secondly, players are used to items being spread out and readable, which is exactly why we have to change things up. So instead, why don't we lump everything into a clump of text for the player to rummage through like some fucking hyena. And finally, let's have 4 characters total, so the world will feel so devoid of excitement that you're most interested in spending your whole experience in a hole. You know, contrary to that point, I genuinely like this game actually. But I don't understand why certain things feel so archaic, because it's like the game got developed on another planet without any exposure to other products in this genre. You can run through this game even today and think, this is pretty fun, but it has a lot of little problems that could have been ironed out. And I guarantee you'd feel the exact same way about Diablo 1 if you played it today for the first time, but the only difference is the games were made 12 years apart. In 2009, the industry had refined a lot of things that plagued earlier PC games, making the entire experience more user-friendly, but Torchlight just ignores any of that. Even Diablo 1 could have multiplayer, this game cannot. What the why not? I feel like it was a test to see how many random little nice things could be cut out while having the game still sell well. I'll say this though, the combat has that good punch you want from these kind of games. I mean, look at that screen shake, that's nice. Come back in a few weeks, I just planted that goblin like a tree. But speaking of the goblin and his now compressed chest, here's another area where Torchlight got something right, the enemy design. Like many games of this genre, you reach the point where the difficulty comes from getting one shot, and you, as the player, need to realize what is doing it. For example, the Goblin Hound should have been named the Goblin Clowns Your Ass, because it's like a Ford F-150 is smashing into my posterior when this stupid-ass small dog-like hound comes to town. Messing around, should have left it at the pound, would have been sound, but instead my ass is now in the ground. Look out for my new album, First Grade Rhymes. But regardless about your game's overall complexity, which, spoiler alert, Torchlight barely has any, standout enemies are always a nice addition. Whenever I play a new game in this genre, I always look for those enemies that stick in my mind, make an impression, not just in my anus, but also in my memory. Although I'm not overly fond of all of these. Take for example these guys, these energy orb beasts are frightfully annoying in groups, and actually as a standard, if an enemy is a ball that floats, which could be the lamest design for anything ever, they're almost guaranteed to be randomly challenging. And it's just a ball! And then you have enemies which are unavoidable, making resistance and high life the only option to deal with them, something I feel is not perfect. Take my gun last playthrough, I had little chance of surviving one of these instant cast bolts coming from this enemy, so when the screen had 2 or more of them on it, it's an insta-gib, get out of the game time. And then you just have skeletons. Just fucking skeletons. So yeah, in general, the enemies are pretty good, but Torchlight then reminds you that it was made in 2009, so there was no way at all they could have programmed an enjoyable targeting system. Stairs, bookcases, corners, candles, door frames, everything that you can name will impede your accuracy. The amount of times I wanted to climb into the game world and just do the shooting for my character, because I promise, even as a regular man with no powers, I could shoot this troll. Also, as a side note, the game whispers to you, so that's pretty cool design. Alright, so gameplay, you get a thumbs sideways. What about the depth of systems, though? Unfortunately, from every ARPG I've played up until now, which isn't all of them, of course, still gotta play Minecraft Dungeons, these skills are some of the worst I've seen. Just for context, you start the game, gander at the 3 character class choices, gun, sword, stick. Say you pick stick and say, okay, let's go, and then you load into the mining town of Torchlight, you run forward, do a tutorial battle to get familiar with your attack buttons, and then you are off. Now, you can fight enemies as you'd expect and level up, and now that you're level 2, you get a choice of 3 skill trees per class. Not bad, 3 skill trees, wow, except that's really the thing. You don't get that many unique choices. Each class gets access to the same passives, but that kind of sucks, doesn't it? Like, okay, I'm the spellcaster kind of guy, I guess I'm gonna dual wield fucking hammers. No, you're not. Are you? I don't know what's meta in this game. Especially when you unlock the next tier at every increment of 5 and there's nothing there except something to make the dog stronger. You have a pet in Torchlight, either a cat or a dog, and I find disinterest in both. I mean, basically, it's just there to, like, bite stuff. I'm not sure why they designed this. It's not that interesting at all. I think that it's kind of cool that something picks up gold for you, but I did a little shrug. You couldn't see that. It doesn't come across on a microphone too well. Long story short, the dog and yeah, that's the other thing. You are hard-pressed to find utility skills or synergy skills on these trees, probably because there aren't any skills on these trees to begin with. But additionally, these mastery ones only work on things that you learn via scrolls. I bet you could probably make something cool with these masteries and these learnable skills, I guess, but I hated this. These trees are a minefield of things that aren't relevant to your character, making you just pump up something you're half interested in, or just completely holding off on using your skill points altogether. This isn't to mention that, you know, there is such a small variety in terms of your attack skills anyway. Say you want to be a lightning using alchemist, well, here's your one, kind of 2 choices. Literally, that's all there is. Poison, I'm fairly positive, has 1 choice total, which is insane. So yeah, skill variety stinks, but what about the gameplay flow? Let's get one thing out of the way real quick. How many times can I say that in one video? All my experiences with this game are on very hard difficulty. Whenever presented the option, I push the difficulty slider to max right away. I feel that this makes me learn as much as possible about the mechanics in a short time frame, which helps to produce a cleaner product. Also, I'm no bitch. Like I previously praised, combat has enough crunch to it to make the player engaged. You'll run through crowds pretty reliably with minimal effort, all the while getting to enjoy the tangible increase in damage numbers. In ways, minimal melody is okay. This genre is mostly supposed to be about having enjoyable combat above all else, but there really isn't any depth to anything. Truly, you spend most of the time thinking about what one decision you want to make for the level and then just passively upgrade your gear. There's seldomly any need for consideration, which I see as a negative. Also, gear is bland in general. Some pieces are fat. I mean, like, that's not bad. Looky that. But most of the time, they're like this. This excites few people. But you might say, Seer, I saw your Path of Exile video. As a side note, go check it out. It's alright. You're a casual dodo who hates too much complexity, so why is simplicity also a negative? And my reply would be, how are we having this conversation in real time? I don't understand. This is a pre-recorded video. Also, suck my ball. Let's draw a line graph. Look at that. That's a line graph. Right in the middle, we have an enjoyably perfect balance, meaning in my subjective usage of a line graph, there's flexibility and depth that are accessible, yet progressive, allowing a player to experiment and learn without it being excessive or mandatory. If you have an experience with a ton of depth but nothing in the game requires said depth, then it's worthless and unappealing. And the opposite end of the spectrum is a game that's not approachable at all, with too much complexity. That's better than being boring, but it's not quite ideal. And yeah, ideal in this paragraph description on how balance should work is pretty hard to achieve. Anyway, to make a point simpler, Torchlight is right the fuck over here. There is nothing interesting to ponder. If you have a skill from your tree, nothing really synergizes with it, so you can just take this or that, find the thing that you like to use, and just use it endlessly. It's very basic, and that works to both positive and negative effects. So, Torchlight depth of systems, you get a 5 o'clock thumbs sideways, only not a full 6 because I'm a gracious YouTuber. Alright, break out your tickets to the Louvre, we're about to judge some fucking artwork and theme. I like to set the hourglass on Sword's head. Isn't that fun? Okay, the art and stuff, it's okay. I mean, if you like hole into cave into dungeon into hell, then yeah, it's not bad. Boy, what a fun objective section this is. For me, the music and stuff was pretty good, but completely ruined, and I mean nuclear detonated by the fact that no one stops talking to me. What's the dog doing?
Your pet is Your pet is free. Your pet is free. Your pet is free.
Or how about the fact that you can't pick up anything because your inventory is constantly chock full of garbage, so Mr. Stick has to remind you that you are carrying too much. Need more mana, need more mana, need more mana, need more mana, need more mana. And finally, again, I can't get over how much like Diablo 1 this game is. You'd think the Schaefer brothers, who would have tried a new setting or just let you go, I don't know, instead of down, go up. But really, the three heroes arrive at the town of Fuckedville, USA to use their badass powers and guns to save the town from danger. And then one of them becomes corrupted and is the primary antagonist of the second game. Hey, I've seen this one before. And then anyway, the heroes go through the whole hole to dole out and roll some poor fools. That's fool said to maintain the rhyme. I know it sucks, leave me alone. But all this old talk reminds you that the game literally has 0 moles in it. Wouldn't that be a great enemy to have in a ground-based game? Diablo 1 I excuse because it's a long tunnel to hell, but in this game the mines needed a mole or two. Art and theme, you get a thumb somewhere, undefined because this is subjective. For me, the best word is sure, this is nice. Finally, how is the developer and community support? So, damn, there's a community full of players who want to make this game better. New classes, HUDs, items, you name it, there's probably something out there for you. So the community is kicking ass, and that was primarily enabled by the devs leaving their tools there to use. So that's worth of praise for everyone. Nice, that's just great. Although I feel like the developers themselves instantly jump ship to Torchlight 2, which is, you know, fine, that's alright. But could we have remappable keybinds before you leave? Hello? And yeah, I've read these well-made community guides. I know you can open up the game files and edit them to change keybinds, but I'm counting this as a developer fail because it wasn't intended to let you rebind Jack, which is weird. Again, I'll reiterate, why in the 2009, why no? Anyway, I won't harp on these guys. Torchlight 2 turned out to be a really good game, a lot better than, you know. Anyhow, I actually give the thumbs up, 2 thumbs up exclusively from the community support, which stands as one of the more impressive parts of the game. To be honest, I didn't expect much, so having a full website dedicated to what is a small experience was cool. And now it is time for a verdict, and I doubt anyone would be surprised that I wouldn't consider Torchlight 1 to be possibly the best ARPG of all time. I mean, it was a fun experience, I enjoyed each character class, but the lack of, you know, every single idea and concept doesn't really make it stand out as a game you'd play endlessly. Definitely not the worst I've seen though. I recommend it if you got a few days with nothing on the agenda. Anyway, let's climb out of the hole and start looking towards brighter pastures. Which is a little hint to the next video, you know, just a little tease. Although I haven't fully decided yet, so we'll see about we'll see if that's the next week video. Whew.